All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of our Harvesting Solutions series. This is an opportunity for us to bring our members together to talk about challenges that are facing people across the state of Minnesota. We call it Harvesting Solutions because we want to brainstorm ways that Farm Bureau can be part of that answer. So today we will be covering the topic of rural school funding. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section and we will get back to you with an answer as soon as we can. Today we have with us Sam Walseth and Britta Torkelson with the Minnesota Rural Education Association. Sam started his advocacy career in the State House of Representatives, literally on the ground floor as a page captain. After joining Capitol Hill Associates as a junior lobbyist, Sam got to learn from veteran lobbyists about their vast network of legislative allies. He began advocating for rural school districts early in his career and helped create and grow the Minnesota Rural Education Association. Britta Torkelson's work ethic was developed on the farm she grew up on in St. James, but her passion for government came in part from seeing her father serve in the Minnesota House of Representatives. Britta was drawn to work at Capitol Hill Associates in part based on their reputation, but mostly for the clients that they serve. Both Sam and Britta grew up in greater Minnesota with teacher mothers and are proud to advocate on behalf of rural education issues at the state capitol. So thank you to both of you for being here and welcome.
Of course. Thank you, Pam. And thanks for the great introduction. As Pam mentioned, both Sam and I are here on behalf of the Minnesota Rural Education Association. And we're happy to give some more information about the need for advocacy at the state capitol on rural schools and their issues. So why does MREA exist? Well, as many of you are aware, the rural to urban divide in our state is very present in all aspects of our life. But one of the largest, I would argue, would be within our education system. MREA was born to give voice, a unified voice to school districts and students and those that work in those schools at the Minnesota State Capitol to advocate for those issues that are specific to rural school districts and champion what needs to be equitable access to high quality educational opportunities for all of our students and schools across our state. MREA is a membership association. As you can see from this map, red denotes a school district that is a member of MREA. So we do have the vast majority of rural Minnesota school districts are a member of our organization. We serve, as you can see, 238 school districts throughout the state, which means over 265,000 students. We also have a number of co-ops as well as associate members. Those associate members range from businesses to other organizations, some ag orgs like the Corn Growers Association is associate member, as well as some of our universities throughout the state that believe all these folks believe it's important to add their voice to advocating on behalf of rural schools. So as I mentioned before, one of the main prongs and purposes of MREA and why it was created in the first place is legislative advocacy and lobbying efforts at the state capitol. I will turn it over to Sam in just a minute because he, as noted in his introduction, he helped build MREA into what it is known today. And all of these bulleted wins at the Minnesota State Capitol, he was a part of, if not the reason for. We're very proud to have him the voice of MREA at the Minnesota State Capitol. And here's his chance to brag now.
And thank you, Britta. Thank you, Pam. And thank you, Farm Bureau, for inviting us in today. The last time the Minnesota Rural Education Association Farm Bureau got together, we created something pretty powerful. We talk about harvesting solutions and obviously the agricultural school bond credit, what we call ag to school, I think is probably one of the most significant pieces of legislation that we've worked on together. And is super impactful and meaningful for both the agricultural economy and farm taxes and schools, rural schools and students. And we can talk about that at length, but I wanted to mention a few of the other things that we work on at the MREA inside the education committee process at the state legislature. The general education formula, that is kind of the core funding stream that runs out to all school districts. All students generate about $7,500 per pupil. And we were able to get the legislature to add an inflationary factor to that basic formula allowance. And that money really is as close to a kind of a kid as a kid per pupil funding as we like to talk about it. And that's really the core gas in the tank, if you will, that really fuels the rural school system. So we're really pleased to get that inflator in there. We have to defend that from time to time, depending on the budget cycle, but that's a key thing we've been victorious on at the state legislature. Local optional revenue. This is another piece of levy authority for school boards across the state, and we've got a nice equalization factor tied to that helps drive down some of the local taxes on that levy. Long-term facility maintenance, we call it LTFM. Again, that's how our school districts often deal with their deferred maintenance on facilities. And of course, the big bond issues that go forward, those votes that happen in communities when schools need to either really do major remodeling or build a new school. And that bond credit, what we call ag to school, giving a 70% tax credit back to the agricultural production land. So that is a significant win and probably a good core nexus point between our two organizations. We've also worked on what we call the tiered licensure system to try and help provide flexibility to build out our teacher workforce. A lot of our rural communities struggle with workforce issues. You know that all too well. We do in the public education system. And so having different tiers for potential candidates, teacher candidates to enter into the system has been very helpful. Special education cross-subsidy support. We've got the state has been making significant contributions to our special education costs. That will be challenged in the years to come as the state grapples with budget deficits, but the state of Minnesota has made some significant improvements to the special education support it gives to our students across the state. Rural Career Tech Ed Consortia grants. These are grants that go around the whole state, helping to rebuild CTE programming. It's ongoing funding we have secured over the last decade. Very proud of the work there. 18 Online, this is credentialing, helping our teachers get credentials so our rural students can take college courses in the high school, and keeping that per pupil revenue at the high school level to help that economic support for the high schools. Another success piece for our organization. And then a lot of what we do each year at the legislature is battle the mandate, unfunded mandates in the halls of the legislature. Everybody's got an idea of what they think the public school system should be doing and how they should do it. Economy of scale is an issue. Small school factors are an issue. Not every, one size does not fit all. And so we often spend a lot of our time during a legislative session battling off policy mandates that are generated in the halls of the Capitol. And this is just a look. We do some mapping to show kind of a data spreads, usually of financial information. You can see on the voter-approved operating referendum, and so this is the house garage 1 acre tax base. You can see the darkest red areas are where you have the highest levels of voter-approved operating referenda in the state. And obviously you can kind of see down in the Twin Cities area, deep red in terms of the high amount of referenda per pupil. You might ask yourself, well, what's going on with the northwest corner of the state? And those schools are so sparse in terms of their student populations that, if you're in a school district of maybe 200 or 300 students, you're going to need $2,000 or $3,000 or more dollars per pupil to raise anything significantly. So the districts up in the far northwest corner are kind of a statistical anomaly, but generally you can see that the highest voter approved amounts of operating referendum dollars are down in the metro. Then in southern and kind of western Minnesota, it's kind of a mixed bag of levels of support. And then in that central and north going northeast area is where we really see a declining amount of voter approved operating referendum support from the voters. And we think that has a lot to do with some of the seasonal recreational cabin tax base that is up in that area of the state. And we're working on some specific legislation to try to help those school districts get some of that cabin tax back that the state of Minnesota collects as a way to try to help their voters get to yes, just like we did with the ag to school bond credit to help voters in farm country get to yes on those bond issues. This map just shows the distribution of where the ag to school, the bond credit money from the state actually goes. I don't like to advertise it too broadly because I'm always a skeptic inside the halls of the Capitol, especially in tax committee, and I think they're always looking for dollars to reclaim dollars. But I think we have well over $100 million per year coming from the state of Minnesota going out to the agricultural bond credit to help pay those school district debt service payments on their facilities. And unlike the operating referendum where the Twin Cities has most of that revenue, this is where the revenue is going out to farm country. And obviously you can see down in southeast Minnesota all the way across southern Minnesota and kind of up the western border where districts have passed probably pretty significant bond issues, and a lot of that credit money is flowing out from the state out to those districts. All right. Just want to go over some of the kind of the accomplishments from our organization's perspective this last session. We, preserving that inflationary factor on the basic formula allowance is a big deal. We had actually bipartisan support in the House, Republican and Democrat, in their interesting tied state House this last session. They were unified in defending this for the schools. So was the governor. It was actually the Senate DFL kind of ironically proposed eliminating that inflationary factor as part of their budget balancing measures. We were able to fight that off, and that inflationary factor has stayed in place. You might hear a little bit more in your rural communities as your school districts are able now to tackle their roof repair and replacement projects on a larger scale. That long-term facility maintenance program was expanded to allow the rural school boards and metro school boards as well to levy for roof repair and replacement. And we can go into some more detail about that. But I know the New Ulm School District has just been talking about this along with several others. And so for those of you who are close to your school districts and your school boards, you may hear them talking a little bit more openly about tackling their roof repair and replacement projects and having some levy authority to do that. What I will note is if they bond against that levy authority, those bond payments are subject to the ag to school tax credits. So that's important to know that if your school district is going to levy for their roof repair and replacement on a larger scale, and they take out a bond issue to do that, those bond payments are eligible for the ag to school bond credit. So that is that ag to school program is really, really effective because it doesn't just apply to the voter approved, it also applies to the school board approved levies as well. And that's an important thing to note. Teacher Retirement Association, this has been a big deal within the teacher community and the school community. And we saw some forward progress this legislative session, lowering the normal retirement age from 62 to 60. There are some early withdrawal penalties. So even at age 60, you can start to withdraw some money and qualify for TRA benefits, but they are at a reduced level. But it does give those educators an option to consider as they look at when they want to retire. Compensatory aid is something you may pick up on. This is one of the larger, right next to the basic education formula allowance and special education money. Compensatory is money that flows out based on the amount of low-income students you have in your school district. And that formula has gotten a little bit, what do I want to say? It's been a little messy in light of the free meals program that the state has put in place, because kids and families don't necessarily need to fill out their free and reduced application forms anymore because they're just qualifying for free meals. And so that's kind of messed up the compensatory calculations for school districts. And so we were able to get a one-time fix from the legislature on compensatory to stabilize the revenue out to schools. There is a task force that will start meeting in September, put together by the Department of Education with a lot of school personnel and other advocates to try to find a new kind of proxy or base to generate compensatory revenue off of. And that is, compensatory is often looked at as kind of money that goes to Minneapolis and St. Paul. The truth is that money really does go around the state, and we've got a lot of rural school districts with a lot of low-income families who do generate compensatory revenue. So we hear about it at the MREA quite a bit from our own school district members that we need to be part of a compensatory solution. Some of the things that the 2023 legislature did, that big DFL trifecta legislative biennium that I think everyone is feeling the effects of, some of the labor mandates that came through. Obviously, there's paid family medical leave that every sector of the economy is going to be grappling with, earned safe and sick time. For the school system, in addition to those two, the hourly staff or the non-certified staff are now able to qualify for unemployment insurance benefits during summer term if they are not offered a like-for-like type of job for the summer, which is often the case because we know school's out for summer and certainly waiting until after the state fair and Labor Day in many districts to come back in. But those costs of unemployment are upwards of 60 or $70 million per summer term. And that was an employee mandate put onto the districts, and we have asked the state to pay for that. They are paying for it for another 2 years, but that will be another issue for school districts across the state, but also rural districts in particular, to have to keep an eye on about how we're going to pay for those employee benefits when the state money runs out. A couple other things I'll just mention, looking at licensure flexibility for short call substitute teachers. Very proud of this. Really was an organically grown program from some of our own school districts who came up with this idea. We're able to use some non-traditional candidates, people with AA degrees or paraprofessionals who've been working in the school district for a year are now able to qualify for short call substitute teachers. So a little bit of flexibility there as we deal with our short call sub pools across our schools. Q-Comp is an old program that funnels money into certain school districts. We'd like to see that money go into all school districts to help with teacher development and that evaluation work. I mentioned Labor Day start date. That calendar is always kind of a bit of a tug of war with between schools and different economic interests. Mostly, it seems mostly between schools and the resort community up north. Haven't heard the farm community too loud on this one of late, so I'd be curious to know where Farm Bureau members are at on Labor Day start date. As there's pressure, with the sports teams, the football teams, everybody to get back, and some districts want to start a little bit earlier, get out a little bit earlier. And then the last thing I'd note is just we worked on there's some categorical funding around what we call student support services. Just think school counselors. And we would like to have a little more flexibility in those dollars. We got a little bit of flexibility from the legislature this year, not as much as we wanted, but a little bit of forward progress on some of those specific dollars that are coming into the schools for those student support positions. And that's just a kind of a snapshot of 2025 of what we were able to work on this last budget session. And Pam, what do we have on the next slide? So some emerging issues. Yeah. The challenges, I think, as we look at rural school funding in the E12 bill, and these are challenges across the state, stabilizing our state aid. We know that the state's got probably looking at deficits, hopefully not as big as we saw this last session. Maybe they have addressed a large portion of it, but we also know that the Health and Human Services budget's continuing to grow and that the state is going to have to absorb Medicaid cuts from the federal government. Those are going to kind of flow through starting in 2027. So as the kind of the Health and Human Services world and Medicaid world is dealing with its challenges, that obviously has a ripple effect over to education because we're so dependent on state aid. I mentioned that compensatory revenue, looking for a solution there to stabilize that funding stream. Special education, we do see some future cuts that are planned that are coming forward in special ed. That was part of the budget balancing efforts made by the legislature this last session. So the question is, are they going to go deeper into special ed for further cuts, or are those have we seen kind of the worst of it? Levy fairness, and I think this really gets to probably some of the issues that are maybe a little more near and dear for the Farm Bureau community. Making sure those equalization factors are getting addressed, looking at tax credits for different levy programs, and obviously defending the 70% ag to school bond credit is really, to me, is really the near and dear piece that we need to work on together. I don't think we really see a challenge coming on that front, but when times get tight, the legislature may be looking under all sorts of couch cushions for dollars, and we have a new generation of legislators who weren't here 10 years ago when we put this program together. And so they may look at this thing on the spreadsheet and say, well, what is this and who gets it and why? And so we should always be ready to talk about the importance of that program from a tax fairness issue, a student fairness issue, a school district fairness issue. There's a lot of really positives with that program, but let's be ready to defend it each year. And then grappling with the employee mandates, as I mentioned, the unemployment insurance program is it's substantial. When we're talking $60 to $70 million a year for the school system, that's a substantial cost. And if the state is not going to have the dollars to pay for that benefit going forward, we really need them to be realistic about what we are able to pay for at the local level, what we are not able to pay for at the local level. So we kind of see these as the emerging issues as we get through this budget cycle and start looking ahead to the next budget cycle from the state of Minnesota. And obviously be happy to take questions from the community as you go forth with your discussions this summer and fall.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And as he mentioned, and as Pam mentioned at the start, go ahead and put your questions in the chat, and Farm Bureau will get a hold of us and get some answers back to you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that there are many, many, many different facets that go into rural school funding. I think often it's easy to just think it's our bonds and our referendums, but it is more than that. And they are large businesses in each of our communities, serving our communities as well. So just a couple questions from our end. And then, of course, we will reach out with other questions that come in. But if you were talking to a Farm Bureau member who doesn't have a lot of experience or doesn't necessarily know a lot about how rural schools are funded, like what is the one thing you would tell them to do first to take action in their community?
That's a great question. And, taking action locally in the community, I think, school districts, especially in rural communities, we need help. We need our professionals, our businesses to be a part of the school system, serving on school boards, offering technical expertise in career tech ed programming, being supportive, challenge the schools certainly on budget issues, but being supportive when they are asking for dollars, because the levy portion of school funding is significant and it is important. So I think just generally being really tied into the school system, it really takes that whole rural community to make a rural school district work.
Is there one area of funding that needs more advocacy than another, or is it whatever is affecting your school district the most?
Yeah, that is a great question, Pam. And it's, with 238 school districts, everybody's in a little unique spot with their tax base and how they generate money off the different state aids. So you'll get a little different twist depending on your who your superintendent is or your school board. They may have a little different pressure point, but I would say generally the basic formula allowance is really, really key. I mean, that is really the driver, and keeping the state's commitment to an inflationary increase. That inflationary increase is statutorily bookmarked between 2 and 3%. So this is not runaway inflator of 5 to 10%. This is a modest 2 to 3%, but that generates hundreds of millions of dollars a year from the state back into our local school districts that they're then not asking you to vote for at the local level. So that is really a key piece. And then I think on tax issues, property tax issues, asking the state to make sure that when schools are asking for levy fairness around what we call the equalization factors or tax credits for property classifications, to really listen to the school district folks on that and help make those a priority. We would love to see some homeowner tax credits emerge on some of our operating levies, and that would actually impact the house, garage, and 1 acre. It wouldn't necessarily be on the production land, but that type of tax credit on that homestead part of the property, it could be a benefit there, in addition to the homes that are back in town. So the taxpayer fairness, I think, on property taxes is key, but that general education formula is a big ticket item. And then, of course, let's not brag about it too much, but the ag to school bond credit, let's be ready to lock arms and keep that on the books, at least until I retire, and then it can be Britta and Pam's problem for the time after that, after I'm gone.
No, we'll bring you out of retirement if that ever happens.
Great. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that with us. And one more time, if anybody has any questions, please reach out and we will make sure to pass them on to this team here and get you an answer. So just a reminder, we have one more episode of our Harvesting Solutions left for this year, and that will be on Monday, September 22nd at 2 p.m., where our topic will be energy. So thank you all for joining us.